Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are organic compounds made of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen atoms, usually with a hydrogen-oxygen ratio of 2:1. Sugars, starch and cellulose are the most common carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are produced by green plants only. The process of production of carbohydrates by green plants is known as photosynthesis, and this is a process in which carbon dioxide and water are used as raw materials, and the energy for the synthesis of carbohydrates is obtained from sunlight. Water is absorbed by the plants from soil, and carbon dioxide is absorbed from the air. The initial carbohydrate formed in plants is glucose, and then it is converted into other carbohydrates. Oxygen is given out by the plants as a byproduct of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis takes place inside the green organelles known as plastids present in the cells of the leaves of plants. The solar energy is trapped in the chemical bonds between carbon, hydrogen and oxygen in the glucose molecule. The general process of formation of glucose from carbon dioxide and water utilizing sunlight is shown in the equation shown here. The raw materials used for photosynthesis for the synthesis of glucose are carbon dioxide and water. In the presence of sunlight, the process takes place inside the chloroplasts of green leaves, and the end products are glucose and oxygen. When we speak about carbohydrates, the first product of photosynthesis is glucose, and then it is converted into other compounds like sucrose, starch and cellulose by the green plants, and energy that is obtained from sunlight is stored in the chemical bonds of carbohydrates, and this energy is released by plants and animals, of course plants, animals and microorganisms at the time of respiration, and that energy is used for doing different activities by these organisms. And in the process of conversion of glucose into carbon dioxide and water at the time of respiration, this energy is getting released. 1 gram of glucose contains 4 calories of energy, and glucose formed in plant leaves can be directly used by the plants to get energy for their day-to-day activities, or the glucose residues are getting converted into complex sugars for transport to different parts of the plant body for different activities like the building of the plant body and storage as reserve food, etc. The plant body is mainly made of cellulose, and cellulose is a complex and water insoluble carbohydrate formed from glucose. Starch is also a complex carbohydrate formed from glucose molecules, and it forms the major reserve food in plants. And when you come to the classification of carbohydrates, there are simple compounds coming in this group and complex compounds also. And carbohydrates are usually called saccharides. And there are different types of saccharides based on their structural complexity. The simplest type of carbohydrates are called monosaccharides. They are sugars, or they are simple sugars that cannot be further hydrolyzed into further simple organic compounds. Mainly, there are three monosaccharides: glucose, fructose, and galactose. Fructose is sweeter than glucose and galactose, and it is known as the fruit sugar. And ripe fruits are rich in fructose. Monosaccharides can be called simple sugars as mentioned earlier, and all of them are soluble in water. Glucose, fructose and galactose have the same chemical formula: C6H12O6, but their chemical structure is different. One molecule of glucose, fructose and galactose are made up of 6 carbon atoms, 12 hydrogen atoms and 6 oxygen atoms, but their structural arrangement is different, as I mentioned. So, as we have now seen, monosaccharides are the simplest carbohydrates, or they are called simple sugars, and all of them are sweet in nature. They are water soluble. And then come the disaccharides. The disaccharides are usually called double sugars. They are formed when two monosaccharides are joined by a glycosidic bond. Sucrose, lactose and maltose are the three common disaccharides. Their chemical formula is C12H22O11. Sucrose is known as cane sugar, lactose is known as milk sugar, and maltose is known as malt sugar. Sucrose is called transport sugar also because the carbohydrate synthesized by plant leaves is getting transported to different parts of the plant in the form of sucrose. In some plants, food is stored in the form of sucrose. Such plants are the sugar producing plants. Sugarcane, sugar beet, etc. are examples of sugar producing plants. Sucrose is made from one glucose molecule and one fructose molecule. Lactose is made from one glucose molecule and one galactose molecule, and maltose is made from two glucose molecules. Maltose is seen in germinated grains. And the next group of carbohydrates based on their structural complexity are oligosaccharides. And oligosaccharides are derivatives of sugar molecules that are formed from a few monosaccharides. You can say more than 2. Usually, carbohydrates that are formed from 3 to 10 monosaccharides are called oligosaccharides. Examples are raffinose, plantiose, stachyose, sesamos, verbascose, etc. All these compounds are present in different types of plants. Raffinose and plantiose contain 3 sugar residues, and they can be called trisaccharides. or you can also call them trioses. Stachyos and sesamos are examples for tetrasaccharides, where buscose is a pentasaccharide with 5 sugar moieties in it. Some of them are water soluble and digestible by human beings, but most of them are not soluble in water, and such oligosaccharides are water insoluble, and they move to the large intestine undigested if you are consuming it through your food. And they behave as prebiotics and dietary fibers. They promote the growth of bifidobacteria in the gut. Bifidobacteria are a group of beneficial bacteria present in the gut. Onions, legumes and asparagus are good sources of oligosaccharides. Mushrooms are also good sources of oligosaccharides. And the next group of carbohydrates are the complex carbohydrates, which are known as polysaccharides. And polysaccharides are long chain polymers of simple sugars. Usually they contain hundreds of sugar residues. Starch, cellulose and glycogen are the most common polysaccharides. These are usually unbranched in their chemical structure, and all the three are water insoluble. Starch is the reserve food in plants and glycogen is the reserve food in animals. Cellulose is the most important component of plant cell walls. Cellulose forms macromolecular structures and impart mechanical strength to the primary plant body. Starch and glycogen are formed by alpha glycosidic bonding between glucose residues, and cellulose is formed by beta glycosidic bonding. Pectin found in plant cell walls and chitin found in the cell walls of fungi usually have a branched chemical structure. These are also complex polysaccharides, but they have a branched structural formula. Glycogen is the storage polysaccharide found in animals, and it is usually stored in the liver. Polysaccharides are the richest sources of food energy. The general chemical formula of a polysaccharide is C6H10O5 N times. Cereals like rice, wheat, maize and sorghum, tubers like potato, cassava and sweet potato, and fruits like banana and apple are the most important sources of carbohydrates to mankind. 1 gram of carbohydrate is capable of providing 3.75 calories on digestion. The calorie requirement of a 2-year-old child is about 1000 calories a day. Calorie requirement of an active young man is 3000 calories per day, and energy requirement of an active young lady is 2200 calories. Energy requirement of a moderately active 70-year-old man is 2200 calories, and that of a moderately active 70-year-old woman is 1800 calories. So, carbohydrates are the most important sources of energy for the active life of human beings and other animals and other organisms. Thank you very much.